So I wanted to check in on the music video industry. I was wondering things like, why do we make them in the first place? Have they changed much? And how does one go about directing the big ones? So I tracked down one of today's hottest music video directors, and she answered all of my questions. Today's guest is Mia Barnes.
When you hear a song, you see something in your head, and I think to be involved with the visualization of that is really, really special. I like to be really, really sure of what I'm after. If your heart's in it, I can work nonstop, you know what I mean? But if it's not, then it becomes really draining. Don't wait around for the call, but rather like give people a reason to call you. It's really amazing that this is our job, and I try not to forget that. It's fun. Music videos are fun to make. Like you're dancing, you're performing to a song, like we're making art together, we have money to make art together. Like that's such an amazing privilege.
One thing that we really dug into was her special way of preparing for a shoot, and how no matter what, something always seems to go off the rails.
When I first started directing, I was like, does something always happen? And everyone was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, it's not me. It's just like the nature of the job.
Hey everyone, Dylan here. Look, I'm a little shocked, honestly, by how well this podcast is doing, and we'd like to make a lot of episodes soon. So, like this video, subscribe to the channel. It'll help us make more. Also, if you'd like to watch me wilt in the heat of my own home, stick around to the very end. Thank you. Mia Barnes, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I want to talk about your music video work. I'm really interested in it. Specifically your ability to characterize an artist in a video or scene. Like when they're performing in their video, I noticed that they're not just the artist, but they're often an altered version of themselves in an alternate universe.
Yeah, I think when I get a track and an artist, whether I've worked with them before or not, I usually start by kind of trying to figure out, where have they been, where are they going, and where do I think they should go? What is something that would make somebody click that video that maybe isn't a fan, you know what I mean? Like what's something that would be like, oh, did you see what so-and-so did that, is this kind of feels fresh? I like what you said about like almost like alter ego. It's like, how can the world that I build serve the era that they're in? How can I give them something that maybe they need more of, or, help them sort of realize, I guess, their artistry in a new visual way.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say era. I think most music artists will find themselves in a certain era.
Yeah, definitely. And they change very quickly these days, it seems, branding these eras it's really exciting to be a part of, but yeah.
Where do you think a lot of your ideas come from? Is there a certain place or no?
Yeah, I think for me, usually when I get a song, I'm not so good at videos. I mean, I love videos like this, so no shade to them, but videos that are just vibes. Like I have to find the meaning. I have to know the meaning, even if it maybe is even subtly different from what the meaning is to the artist. So I think when I get a song, I get the lyrics and I just sort of dig into like, what are they saying? What are they trying to say? Like, how can I conceptualize the purpose of this song, whether it's something really academic or even more surface level? It doesn't really matter the depth per se. It's just like, what can I pull out of here that I'm trying to say? So usually when I write my treatments beyond just, here's the idea, what we're doing, I try to contextualize for the artist, like, what's the point? Like, why are we doing this? What are we saying with this?
Yeah.
So a lot of my visual ideas come from these symbolic or metaphoric or academic, sometimes like deeper things. And I think that to me, it's not always necessary that the audience even register all of that, as long as like we know that there's something to be said and there's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
So I think when I've gotten tracks, I would really love to do, more like just a dance video or something like that. But it's really hard for me to write those kinds of videos because I'm such a, I guess, I have to like, why are we doing it? What's the point?
Yeah. I do. And it's so funny. I've been that guy in the past to make those, what I call tonal music videos
yeah.
where they're more, also like Visualizer comes to mind, where it's like, man, it's beautiful. It's striking. I feel some things, but there's no big story arc. There's no context. It's just more of, like you said, a vibe. And I think there's a place for those. Absolutely.
For sure. I love those.
But I don't, I mean, yeah, me too. But I don't see a lot of those in your work. And
that is correct.
I mean, going off that, I'm so curious. When you get a brief, when you get an email, right, with a song, what do you do? What do you do first? Like, are you listening to the song? Are you researching the artist? Are you reading the brief? Like,
Yeah. So I guess step one, as I listen, I know almost instantly, like, whether it's something I want to engage with or not, because I feel like once you start directing music videos, you just start to see them when you listen to the track, and like the ones there I don't see anything, it's like I'm just not connecting with the song. So it's really important, first of all, that I like the song, connect with the song, and that it's evokes something in my brain visually. I usually I listen to the songs that I write on, I just on repeat for the 3 to 4 days that I'm writing. I'll go on a walk and just listen to the song. And whether I'm struggling or not struggling, I think I like to not try to think of something at first and just see what comes. Sometimes if nothing's really coming, then I really have to dig into that kind of meeting and stuff. But I like to follow the instinct that I have when something, like I got a track yesterday and I immediately had something come to mind, not even necessarily the story, but just like the visual aesthetic of it. And I like to follow that when that happens. But so, if there's a brief, I'll of course, read that as well. I try never to just do the brief, although that's like a game, because like I do the brief, but I try to really make it my own, because sometimes it's easier to win the job if you just do the brief. And I've lost jobs before for deviating too much from the brief. But I think I've found in, the career that I've had thus far, that if I can't like find the reason why I want to do it or find the purpose for me, then it just becomes draining at that point because, music videos are a lot of work. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to put in that work, that I feel really, really passionately about what I'm putting forward.
Yeah, when you say do the brief, do you mean write a treatment based just solely off of what they're asking for?
Yeah, and the degree of detail in the briefs varies. Sometimes you get like the whole thing, like this is exactly what I want. Sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you get a few bullet points. I prefer the bullet point version where I get a sense of what they're after, because sometimes if you have, rare that you really get to talk to people too. So if you get a sense of what they're after, you've got a better chance of sort of winning with them. But I love having the space to make it my own, because I think, when I was first starting out, I've really been trying to make sure that I, take on projects that I'm given the opportunity to really make my vision happen and not have to bend so much. Yeah. So
when you write a treatment for a music video, who do you think you're speaking to the most?
That's a good question. I would like to think that I'm speaking to the artist, but I'm not sure that I always am. You know what I mean? Like there's times where I am talking directly to the artist, if they come direct, and those are the best times, because you can really get a sense of where they want to go. And I find that the treatment's always better, and they always like the treatment better if I get to talk to them, which sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I think yeah, even if I don't know who's reading it, I write to the artist, and I try to explain to them why this idea will serve them.
How do you know how much energy to put into a brief, right? Because there's some's taken me a week, some's taken me a day. How do you know how much work to put into one?
Another good question. I think when I first started out, I was going so full throttle on everything. And I'm a little more, not precious, but that if I'm putting in a week's worth of work on a deck, or, that there's some interest in me, and not just, maybe it's not just a shot in the dark, although we all write on shot in the dark sometimes as well. But I mean, I learned the hard way once, and I will not specify what it was, but I didn't give my all on a treatment, and I booked it. And I did not end up really loving the outcome, because I was just like assuming it wasn't going to happen. I was like, oh, I'm not going to get this job. So I was like, here's the treatment. And then they were like, oh, we love it. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I learned never turn in anything that I wouldn't be 100% happy shooting. That was kind of honestly one of my second music videos. I think that happened. But so yeah, now because I don't want to spend time on or I don't want to turn in things that I don't want to shoot. I just am a little choosier.
Yeah, I've forced it before, you know. And was a thing made? Yeah. Was it all right? Yeah, it was fine. But
yeah,
it was a lot of tension because I just, wasn't in it.
Right. Yeah, it was a good lesson kind of early in my career to not do that.
Yeah. Because especially in the beginning, like, there's the era in which you take everything. At least there was an era for me where I just took everything I could get. But getting to a point where you can choose is a really great thing. When did you feel like you got to that point?
I feel like it fluctuates, honestly. Sometimes I feel like I'm in eras or moments where I can be really choosy, and other times I feel like I need to just, capitalize on what's coming my way. I guess it fluctuates, I think, as directing sort of does sometimes.
Is there a singular place you get your inspiration? Is there a specific filmmaker that you look up to?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find inspiration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of started in photography. That's what I went to school for, and that's kind of where I thought I was headed, even though I haven't really deviated completely from that. But I think because that's sort of where, all my time was spent for most of my sort of upbringing and then my formal education. Most of my inspiration comes from photographers.
Hey.
Petra Collins, Nadia Lee Cohen, Alex Prager are kind of my three favorite photographers that sort of endure, not just photographers. They're really artists overall. They do so many things, but the three of them, I think discovering them in kind of high school and college sort of really shaped, my own journey as an artist. And I just think that, all the flowers in their direction, because the three of them are kind of like my my favorite people to watch, sort of, because I think that and this is sort of where I like to, aspire, is they have something so tangible and so them, but they're also always evolving. And it's interesting to see artists do that and not repeat themselves, but also maintain what it is about them that people find so special. And I think just as my career continues, that's the kind of thing that I'm after.
Yeah, you said Petra Collins. That makes a lot of sense, knowing what her work is. That she would influence you.
Yeah, I just think that she's just such a good example of being, so singular and consistent and continuing to always kind of change but stay the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I know for me, like creatively, it seems to be like I have this battery that I need to constantly charge, full of inspiration. How do you charge that battery for yourself?
I try to be ingesting things as often as possible, whether that's reading or watching movies or I mean, since so much of my time is spent doing visual research, it's very kind of like doing my job is a form of keeping myself inspired, because even if I'm not looking for, something, I'll find something and that'll inspire another thought. And I think most of my ideas come from seeing tiny little things and that kind of, or hearing sentences or reading a line in a book, and that becomes a music video concept, down the line. So I'm lucky that I get to kind of exist in a career where I'm always being or seeing and hearing and reading new things that inspire.
Yeah, for me, it's always, like you said, a piece of music or something, or in a situation, one little thing that happens, and then it just turns itself into a whole concept. And do you ever did you ever like build those up and sit on them? Because I have like so much
God.
that.
Yeah, I have notebooks of stuff that, and I've actually kind of just recently started to I think from a personal work sense, start building some of those into reality, because I think early when I first got started, I was just kind of like going and taking jobs left and right and like kind of just learning to, you know, be a filmmaker. And I think now that I'm sort of in a little more settled of a space, I'm kind of trying to chip away at all the stuff that isn't me and really hone in on what is. And I think creating personal work that then, you know, I can share, and that will ideally result in getting that kind of work more consistently just in the music video and commercial space.
I want to talk music videos in general, like the evolution of a music video. I mean, do you think music videos have changed over the years?
Yes.
Or stayed the same?
I think they've, I guess both. I think they've stayed the same in the sense that, you know, regardless of our short attention spans and TikTok and all that stuff coming in, I think that music videos continue to be a really great branding tool for the artist, in ways that, you know, even photography or just 6-second videos can be. I think that there's so many amazing videos being made right now, and I don't know so much that I can comment on whether we're back or we left or there's so much that, but I think that I am surrounded by so many talented people in the music video space, and I feel very inspired by the continued hard work that everyone consistently does. And I think that, you know, because of, you know, I've been asked to like reveal the ending of a video at the beginning so that they can make it 6 seconds long and stuff like that. Like the TikTokification of it all, which I try to fight. But so I think to that extent, like sometimes things get treated with a little less love because a lot of times the focus is on instant, you know, how fast can we shove this in people's faces? So, and, you know, I've had pushback before on like doing intros with music videos because, then people won't watch the video. They'll click away before then. So I think that's something that is tough.
It's really tough. Yeah. I think like when you watch the music video in full, I think not a lot has changed, like from the early days of MTV in the 80s. I think it's like how we consume them has really changed it a lot. You know, like if you go to YouTube's most viewed videos, you've got Baby Shark and Ed Sheeran's Shape of You, or Katy Perry, or One Republic, billions of views. Why do you think people have such an appetite for music videos?
I think that people, even people who aren't visual artists, it's like when you hear a song, you see something in your head. And I think the chance to see your favorite song visualized, you know, especially as a fan of whatever that song is, like, is very special. And I think it gives it a new meaning. It gives it new energy. It almost kind of exacerbates the feeling the song brings. Like, and when things get like turned into GIFs and stuff from videos, it's like, it kind of lets me know that the attitude or the emotion or the performance that was given in the video kind of embellishes upon what the song did. I think giving people the chance to visualize their favorite songs is very special, and it's lovely to do. I as somebody who, I mean, music is, I mean, everybody loves music, but, you know, I wake up, I listen to music, I'm working, I'm listening to music, I'm on a walk, I'm listening to music, and it's such a transformational thing that to be involved with the visualization of that is really, really special. And because my whole life when I listened to songs, I thought of things, you know, I think the first music video I ever made was me in my basement with an umbrella, and it was Rihanna's Umbrella, and it's, you know, me. So like just, it's kind of just an innate thing. You hear the music, you see something, and being able to create what I see now on such a large scale is really special.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. With that, I mean, after hearing that, I'm not surprised at all that your career has been so full of so many great music videos.
Thank you. Yeah. I think another one I did a video of me. It was a 10-minute long video of me walking away from the camera to Kanye West's Runaway. Just that.
Yeah.
That's where it began.
So going from the girl in her bedroom making her own music videos to being the one to actually create music videos for top artists, you know, tell me about that gap in between. What was like the first time that you got the opportunity to make a real music video, and how did that feel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I said, I was kind of on the photography train, and I was doing both, but I met Dave Meyers, the music video director, Dave Meyers, and I began to work for him sort of while I was in college, and I hadn't made a music video at that point, and through that time I was still in school, and it really inspired me. So I went home and I made a music video. It's not on my website, and I was kind of like, okay, let's see if I really like this, and I loved it so much, and then I really kind of decided that that's what I wanted to do. It was always there, but the direction had been a little, I guess, murky. And so I came back to LA and continued working in the music video space for about 3 more years, writing videos, assisting on videos. It's an art form in its own, just given the timeline of the way these things happen, the speed in which you have to write a treatment, the speed in which you have to prep it and shoot it. So like, it's its own thing, It's so different than commercials or anything else that I've done, that it requires sort of its own set of skills. So.
What was it like getting your first music video under your belt?
Yeah.
As someone who's dreamt so much and so long of making them.
My first video, my first like real, commissioned video was Camila Cabello featuring Ed Sheeran. Bam Bam was the song. And it came about in a really fun way. I had met her through Dave, kind of in the past, just like done some videos that he had worked on. So there was already we had met at that point. So she came with the track, and I was actually I was shooting a commercial in South Korea at the time. I was in like a 10-day quarantine. It was during COVID. So I was like stuck in this hotel room for 10 days, writing my first ever music video. And it was a really cool time, I think, for her as an artist. And she really had something she was trying to say with the song. And I wrote a treatment, and we connected about that, and I was like, 2 weeks later, there we were shooting. But it was really surreal to go from sort of like being behind the scenes of music videos for a long time to, it's really fulfilling. It was really fulfilling to get to kind of stamp my name on it and do my vision, in full for the first time. And that was really, really exciting time. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so were you a behind the scenes photographer for on set music videos? Did you do a lot of that?
A little bit of that, yes. And then I also, I worked on treatments. I assisted directors, and I just, kind of learned the music video world that way.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of people who would love to be making music videos who aren't yet, and have always wondered, like, how do I... there's also like certain, like I've made a lot of music videos that are great, but by artists that not many people know, like if I were to ask you, how does Mia get music videos with big artists, where she used to not, like what would be a piece of advice that you would give?
I think that the biggest piece of advice I give people, and it's something that I'm still doing, in my own personal work every day, is just like, don't wait around for the call, but rather like give people a reason to call you. Like build up enough of a, I guess, personal identity as an artist and making things that people want. And then things kind of eventually start to come your way once you have something tangible in that way. Like I think there's a lot of people floating around the space, but I think waiting to get something versus going and making whatever you can make, that in turn then people will see and get a sense of who you are as an artist. Because you can PA for as long as you want, you can assist for as long as you want, but at some point, like, you need to be able to show who you are as an artist, because that's why people are going to want to give you a call. And I think that whether that's, for me, that was kind of done through photography, because it's a lot easier take a bunch of photos than it is to shoot a bunch of music videos,
Right.
just, financially and logistically. So I was kind of using my photography to project to the world, who I was and what my style was and the kind of things I wanted to do. And I think through that, I was able to, get the respect of these artists that then hired me for jobs. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice.
I want to switch gears and talk about representation. I think most directors who are repped by an agency have some type of management have worked hard without that. Can you give me an example of how having representation has aided or put you ahead?
Oh, yeah. I think I was really lucky to meet my representation kind of before I was even directing. I had met them through, like just person to person on sets through kind of the assisting work that I was doing. Jamie and Cheyenne at Lark, who are amazing, and I love them. Once I started kind of getting calls and getting booked, it was kind of, there was already somewhat of a relationship there. So it kind of felt like the natural place to go. And I knew other directors that were repped by them, and I was just feeling very encouraged and supported. They kind of started sending me really small tracks at the beginning that I was writing on, like little things. And then eventually that grew as I grew. And I think, it's pretty instrumental. It wasn't, I haven't spent a lot of my music video career without that representation. So, I can't imagine how much harder that is. I think having them, people who understand who I am as an artist is number one, and they do, and where I want to go, and that having that open communication of like what kind of tracks I like, what kind of tracks I don't like, and sometimes even being pushed places I might not think I should go, but then, it actually works out. Yeah. So yeah, I think that I've been really lucky with them, and I'm grateful to have that support for sure. Yeah.
For people who don't know, tell me how it works. Other than them just sending you creative briefs, what do they really do for you?
So that's a good question. And they would probably have a better answer than me. But from my perspective, they have sort of the connection with the labels and the commissioners at all, the record labels and stuff. And when they are sort of asked, hey, sometimes it's like, hey, we want Mia. Other times it's like, hey, we've got this track. Who do you think would be good for this track? And they do or don't put me forward depending on, if they think I'd be good for it or if it's something I would like. Or a lot of times, I'll send them a list, like, here's all the artists I would really love to work with, so that if they get a track from X artist, hey, Mia wants to work with them. But again, sometimes you do get the single bid or the call, like, we really want you. Then other times you don't, and that's fine, and you pitch anyways. But yeah, so it's sort of a mixture of them kind of knowing me as an artist and pushing me, or I guess putting my name in the ring, and then also fielding stuff that does come my way that might be good for me to explore.
What's it feel like when the artist comes and says, hey, we want Mia and her work? What's that like?
It feels really great. It's very affirming, and I think in music videos, it's sometimes hard to get that feeling. So it's really nice to know that, and that's kind of what I was going back to with my advice, is that to know that the thing that you are, the identity that you're putting out there, people are picking up on that and people want that. And I think, that's a really exciting feeling.
My next question was going to be, what advice do you have for someone who wants to be repped? What do they need? What should they do? Some more literal advice is, I think, because I know, some of the directors I know who are just starting out, is first of all, making that connection, reaching out to these people directly and just kind of saying, hey, I'll take a video for 5K, I'll do a video for 10K, do the small ones, do them scrappy, and eventually it grows, just by default. And then, because, they've got small videos that they can kind of field for people who are just kind of getting going and are willing to do those videos and make them great. So I think finding out who you who's repping your favorite director, and then I'm a big fan of the cold email. Everything I've ever gotten has come from a cold email. So email people,
don't write a story, write like 3 sentences and see what happens.
Yeah. I want to talk about working on set. But before that, what do you need to feel ready? Like the night before the shoot? What makes Mia fall asleep soundly the night before a shoot?
Mia does not fall asleep soundly the night before a shoot, no matter what. But I feel like I'm a really, really strict storyboarder, and I do boardmatics, and I think that with music videos specifically, like we kind of said before, like I don't do a lot where it's just vibes. So a lot of the time my boards are like to the line, like this shot needs to happen on this line. And if it doesn't, then the edit's not gonna flow how I want it to. So I do the storyboards really to the lyric. And then I do boardmatics usually. I find that they're really helpful with music videos more so than anything else that I do. And so I have my iPad, and the screensaver is the schedule. I have my boards on my iPad, and I have my boardmatic on my iPad. And if I go to bed with all of that, I usually feel pretty okay. But, you never know. Music videos always, something always happens. So it's hard to ever feel fully, sane. But that's sort of my weapon or my shield is having those 3 things together. I don't think I've ever or will ever walk onto a music video set without the boards and the boardmatic down exact. And that's not to say that I don't leave room to play, but I need to know that I have a plan, and then in turn it helps everybody on my team.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so important. Yeah, feeling prepared. I mean, like you said, there is no such thing as sound sleep. The night before a shoot, because I mean, let's think about it. What single shoot have you had that's been worthwhile that shit hasn't hit the fan at some point, right? Or there's been a
Yeah. No, when I first started directing, I was like, does something always happen? And everyone was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, it's not me. It's just like the nature of the job.
Yeah.
And obviously, I learned a lot since then, but yeah. But I think that's sort of sometimes greatness comes from that. So I try to be fluid in my rigidness.
Yeah. Okay, so you've slept a little bit the night before. You show up with your boards and your shot list. When you walk on set, what's the first thing you do? Is it a latte, or is it crafty, or are you going to go see somebody?
I go and I walk in I pace. I'm usually pacing in a corner. But no, I usually can't really think about anything, but like I have to go to wherever the first shot is and probably micromanage a little bit too much. Stand over people's shoulders and see what's going on. But yeah, I think that it's less so this way on commercials, but in music videos, it really is like until we start rolling, I'm kind of tense, not in an aggressive way, but just the schedule is always something. So I just really want to get going. But yeah, you'll find me pacing somewhere.
Yeah. Is there a person that you rely on the most on set? Like where is in terms of people, where do you put your safety, if you will?
Definitely my AD. I work with some really, really amazing ADs in LA and also, London. And they're just, it's one of, I think for me, it's probably the most, I mean, not creative role, but, on set role. Because, it's kind of everything to keep the show running. And they're like just my right hand partner in crime. So yeah, that and the DP, I think, I really, that relationship is like very sacred in a way, you know what I mean? Like I've worked with a lot of really great DPs, and my dream is sort of, to have a super consistent relationship in that sense. Because I think it's so important, and, I've worked with so many great people.
What are you looking for in a good DP? Like, let's pretend I'm a DP that would love to work for Mia. What does that DP need to have?
That's a good question. I think the first thing I'm looking at, I mean, both of these are nearly equally important to me, but the first thing I'm looking at is how our visual styles can be married. Often, I'll look at reels and like sometimes you just know that you guys have you're on a different wavelength. And other times I see a reel and I'm like, we are thinking creatively in the same world. So visual style is the first thing. What kind of textures are they attracted to? What kind of color grades are they attracted to? Like, I like to see if we sync up in that world because I feel like I'm pretty consistent style, so I can tell pretty quickly if somebody's can do it, wants to do it, and I prefer not that they just can do it, but that it's already something that is innate to them. And then after that, it's really the personality is so important. I think like because we're working together so closely, and I prefer to be a massive over communicator. So I like to text a lot. I like to talk a lot. I like to go through the boards. I like to look at references, and I like to work with people who are like excited to do that with me, and not that I have to pull teeth to do that with me. Not that that really happens much, but I think, and then the on-set demeanor is obviously so important because we move so quickly and so intensely. There has to be a real gel to that back and forth and ease of communication. And that's why I think the visual style is where it begins, because if we're already on the same page in that way. And, I think another really great thing is, and it's not necessarily, well, like for example, on that Ed Sheeran project that I did, the Subtract kind of visual album, I had a DP who, she was invested in the story we were telling, which, is obviously something you'd want either way, but like she was thinking about the edit with me. She was able to sort of help me, just kind of help me tell the story better. And I think that I always have my storyboards and I always kind of know what I'm after, but I love when somebody can bring better ideas to my ideas, whether I always take them or not is one thing. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I think that I love when people can look at my boards and be like, well, if we did this, that would be, make it 10 times better. It's like, well, great. So I love people who are really invested in the stories that I'm trying to tell as much as I am, because it shows.
Yeah. And I want to get into that project, actually. We're going to break it down a little bit. But, before we do that, this kind of leads me to my next question is, what do you think your job is to be? Or what do you think your job is as a director on set?
Do you mean literally? Like...
Yeah, like when you walk on set, what is everyone expecting out of Mia or out of a director?
Yeah. I think it's my job to know what I want. And I also think my demeanor sets the tone. So I think like I really like to be over prepared because I don't want to waste time, and I like to make sure that everybody on my crew is very clear in what I'm after and what, what I mean? I hate when there's confusion. Like it really stresses me out. If people aren't quite sure where they're supposed to be or what they're supposed to be doing. So I think it's my job to be really clear-minded. And obviously, things happen. You try something and it doesn't come out exactly how you wanted it to, and you have to adapt. But I like to be really, really, sure of what I'm after, because it helps me help everyone else. I can answer questions better. I can solve problems on the fly better. So I think that's why I'm such a purist with the storyboards and stuff is I don't like to be caught off guard, which you do. But so that's number one. And then I think, again, like the demeanor, like it's really amazing that this is our job. And I try not to forget that. And I try to keep it like enjoyable, like we're making art together. We have money to make art together. Like that's such an amazing privilege. And so it's fun. Music videos are fun to make. Like you're dancing, you're performing to a song. Like it should be, when it can be, an enjoyable, a lightness to it. And obviously sometimes when you're rushing, that can't always happen. But I think it's important for me to sort of set that emotional tone. And I think that I've been able to do that in a way where people are comfortable, but also care to work really hard. You know what I mean? Where it's not like there's no slacking off because of that. It's almost like people are more invested because everyone feels supported.
skills, which ones do you need in order to do what you do? Like, what should be in your toolbox?
I feel like I can answer this like for myself. I bet other people might not have these and still be amazing directors. But
Yeah,
for
sure.
me,
Yeah, I want from you.
yeah. I think endurance is number one probably. Like, it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of long hours, and you ask a lot of yourself and everyone around you. And I think endurance, I think being really detail oriented is really important. I'm definitely a perfectionist in that way, and I think that helps. It can hinder sometimes too. I think the ability to adapt is also really important, because like something will always change. You will always have to adapt. Like, I've never not had to adapt. So you can sit there and stomp your feet, or you can make a decision. I think being decisive is really important. And then I think a really strong sense of your vision is obviously maybe even number one. You need to really know what you're after if you're going to expect a crew of 100 people to help you make it.
Yeah. I mean, and going back, that goes back to pre-production as well. Like, as I know that anytime I've really known what I want, it's taken so much pre-production to get there. Do you think there's like such a thing as putting too much effort into the pre-production of a project to sharpen your vision?
If there's such thing as too much?
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that, I will say. I don't think I've ever felt like we tried too hard to nail something. I think because the nature of things are always changing, that nothing can hurt. I think I do try to, allow for fluidity. And I think I'm trying to do that more so, because I am such a planner. I'm trying to make sure that I leave room for thoughts on the fly. But no, I don't think there's ever been anything I've been like, oh man, we over prepared.
No, I love to hear that. Sometimes I feel like I overthink things, like, because there's your gut, right? There's like what's in your gut, and then there's like what we conjure through effort, right? And sometimes I feel like I've ignored my gut in order to try and conjure something else for some reason. I mean, do you ever do that?
That's interesting.
Or is it just me?
No, I think that like at the beginning of my career, there was definitely and I've worked really hard to kind of not do this anymore, but like there was a sort of like just a constant fear, And I think because I was new at the beginning, and I was just really, really wanted to do a good job. And I think because of that, sometimes I actually ended up folding on things that I cared about, because I thought it would make things easier, like for the production or something. So I think I've learned sort of when to really fight for something, and I fight for things a lot more, I think, than I used to. I kind of let things happen. But the more you direct, the more you learn how to get what you want out of your fight for your vision, I guess. So,
God, when to fold them and when to hold them. I was talking to our previous guest about this. Like, when do you know when it's appropriate to fight for your vision or to be collaborative, right? And that's a tough one for me, because I'm like a recovering people pleaser. I want everyone around me to be happy.
yes.
Good and happy. Like, why are we doing this if we're not happy? But the problem with that is if you do that too much, you won't really achieve what everyone's there to get, right?
Yeah.
So knowing the difference is tough. Do you feel like you know that difference?
I do now, but I didn't at the beginning of my career. I felt the same way. I was like, I want everyone to leave my set and like me, you know what I mean? Like, I want everyone to be like, oh, she was really fun to work with. And I still feel that way. But I also feel like it's more important that I get the vision. And I think that there's a way to, fight for what you need. And obviously there's times where we have to fold due to just the realities of a situation. But yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable just kind of putting my foot down, because if the people around you are passionate about what you're making, stuff happens, you know what I mean? And if you don't put your foot down, you will never know if it was possible or not. And a lot of times it is.
Yeah. Do you have friends that work on set that are crew members? Do you have crew member
I do.
friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Set's tough. It just is. When you're a crew member especially, I think you're seeing the most of the long hours or the physical labor. And what do you do to let off steam? You talk about set. You talk about how tough it is. And I would sit around and hear that from my friends and like never want to be the director of a set that everyone hates. I don't want to be the reason my friends hate their jobs for that day.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like I let that get to me a little bit. And then I like aimed to be too agreeable. I was like, no, my set is going to be the set that no one forgets. Everyone remembers that it's going to only be good times. But I think that can be dangerous. I think that can be dangerous as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think there's a way to do both. And I think that like, obviously there are going to be hard set days. Most of them are, you know what I mean? But I think if like, that's why it's so important to me, I think, to have the respect of my crew and stuff, because then they want to jump in the fire with me. You know what I mean? Like if people care about you and your work, they will do, the overtime, and they will. And I think obviously you never want to abuse that, with the people that work with you. But I think that there is a way that you can conjure a healthy set environment while still pushing for what you want. But it's obviously, it's something that you have to, I think it's an ever present thing to be aware of when you're shooting. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think being able to bring people on set has been like just so fun. At the beginning of my career, I didn't really know that many people that I worked with, and it's a little lonely, And so as I've grown, so has my kind of team of repeat, I guess, crew, and it's just makes it so much better.
Rando question: have you ever brought anyone on set who has nothing to do with the shoot, like a family member or a friend?
I've had friends come visit, like, because, a lot of people don't know really what I do. Like, they're like, oh, you're a director, but, like, we have no idea what you're doing all day. I've had some friends visit. I'd love the chance to have my family come see, but someday.
Yeah. I had my mom come to set one time, and it was so fun, so funny to, like, watch her be there and kind of just be like, this feels like a construction site. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. No, I'm excited for that day for sure. Because, like I said, like people who are not in the industry at all, like really have no idea what we're doing and how we're doing it. So
we as filmmakers have projects, a lot of projects, right? But sometimes there's the big ones, and I want to talk about a big one for you, which is that 14-piece visual album for Ed Sheeran back in 2023 called Subtract. This was clearly a large project. Give me the overview. Give me the synopsis. How did that happen?
Yeah, no, I love to talk about this. I feel like I haven't actually really talked that publicly about it even since it came out. So this is a great invitation. So I met Ed on the set of my first music video with Camila Bam Bam, because he was the feature. So I actually flew to London for like a 6-hour shoot. Like she wasn't even there really. It was just me and him at a bar, and we shot his scene. And that's how, oh, you know what? I'm lying. I had met him before that. So through the assisting work that I used to do with Dave Meyers, he had done a few videos with Ed, like Bad Habits and I think Shivers, and I think those are the main ones I was around for. But that's where we first met, and I kind of first was introduced. And then the first time I personally worked with him was on Bam Bam, and it was so much fun. And then I guess it was later that year, they were looking for someone to take this on. Not that was hard, because it's an amazing project to be a part of. So I got a call about it, and I think it started, it kind of morphed over what it was going to be. Like, we knew it was going to be a big project, but, where it landed was 3 music videos, or 3 or 4 music videos, and then like 10 visualizers. And so at that point for me, it was, it would have been today, just like such a such a dream project because normally in music videos, you don't get that much time to sit with anything, the artist, the work, the album, you know? And so like for me as somebody who really likes to like dig deep, it was just so exciting because I got time to write. I mean, we shot it really quickly, but you know, still 2 weeks with a project is longer than 4 days. So that was pretty amazing. And I think what was the most exciting thing for me creatively was the album was kind of in a new space for him. Like it wasn't really about charting pop hits, you know, so much as he had been through sort of a lot in that past couple of years, and it was sort of a soul-bearing album for him, and it was a little more underproduced sounding, and the subject matter of the songs were a little darker than normal, and it was kind of this stripped back version of him that I kind of started with. It's so exciting when you get to work with an artist when they're sort of doing something different. Like I felt like I had not seen this side of him before at this scale.
Well, dude, and that's what's exciting, right? Is not only are you like not only is an artist doing something different, but you have been chosen the one to help them do that.
Yeah. It's. I mean, it was an honor then, and it is now, and I think that it was also what I loved about it was like the whole thing, the whole tone was really up my alley anyways. Like it was like I love the chance to kind of dig into what he was digging into, these sort of really human, honest, raw songs and feelings. And so overall it was just like couldn't have been a more powerful invitation. And also just to be let into something so personal, and it was so intimate. The songs are extremely, extremely personal. And so it was kind of, you know, it's you're holding somebody's kind of deepest, worst moments in your hands, and you need to make art out of that. So it was, you know, an honor, and I hope that I did it justice.
What about you and your work do you think allowed you to be the one to be selected?
I think it was my treatment that really put it over. You know, I think there was a tonality to the work that I had done before that conveyed that I could do this sort of raw, maybe darker subject matter. And it is a tonal place I like to play in anyways, but I put together a pretty intense deck. I think what we made is like really true to what the treatment was, which just kind of goes back to everything I'm saying is just like the writing process is so crucial to me because that's where I find out what I'm after and I get really specific, and then it makes the rest of my job easier because I've genesis sort of what I'm doing and what I want to do, and I've done the visual research at that point that, you know, things evolve, but it was pretty, I think, you know, not much changed from the treatment.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like schedule-wise alone, like I've done this thing where we've shot 2 music videos on the same shoot, and you get to use the same crew and the same rental gear. It's an ergonomic way, if you will, to make more than one video. But this is kind of like that on crack. I mean, you guys so scheduling, like how did it work? What were your intentions?
So I believe it was a 14-day shoot. I'm pretty sure. So what we did was, like, for example, I think that the biggest video was Eyes Closed. I believe that was a day and a half that we shot that in. And then the other biggest one was Boat, which was just 1 day. Let's see, we had Life Goes On, which was also 1 day. So I think the bigger ones got a day. And then we did the visualizers, we would do 2 a day for, you know, in these 14 days. And then we also shot an album announcement on one of the days too. So we were shooting, but the visualizers, I think it's funny, you know, they had to be simple by default of, you know, our production reality. And I think it was a fun practice and sort of what we were talking about earlier about, you know, there's not necessarily, it is more experiential and more of a vibe than anything else.
I mean, it's funny you're even considering these to be visualizers, because when I think of visualizers or something tonal, I think of something really stripped back. But even what you're calling that in this album is, I mean, there's a lot to these.
I think that kind of goes back to my inability to keep it simple. Like I couldn't just, like I've since, in preparation for this and since then, I watched visualizers and I was like, oh, they really just kind of sat and sang and that was the visualizer. And, again, I love those and they have their place, but I couldn't like, I couldn't pare it down more. And some of them kind of walk the line, like this one you're on right now, Curtains, like it was kind of intended to be a visualizer, but it just grew because we were inspired.
I mean, making it more complicated might not be the right term, but always wanting to make the most out of what you have and push and push and push. I think that's part of why we get hired is because maybe people might assume that we're going to do that anyway, even though it's not necessarily on paper or in the treatment. Do you agree with that?
That kind of, we get hired because of that drive to elaborate upon it?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get hired because of our drive. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I think for sure. I think that's kind of what people almost expect a lot of the time when you get a brief. And it's a lot of the briefs that I get, commercial and music video space, like they're looking for more, They have the piece, and then I think that there's the expectation that we will lovingly overcomplicate it.
Yeah. I want to take this opportunity and just do a quick fire round of how did you do this?
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. Love that.
So let's start with this scene. We've got Ed Sheeran in a car flying off a cliff.
How did we do it? So the shots of him inside the car, that we had the car just dangling from a crane. We did that on like a lot, and we put Ed in there, and we had someone in the back seat throwing glass. And then we shot plates at the cliffs with a drone team.
Cool.
So these plates are all real. We went and we shot those. It was really, really epic to be there. And then that's a CG car. There was talk of actually throwing a car into the ocean, but it never got actualized. And when we shot the driving footage of the blue car up on those cliffs practically as well.
Cool.
But no, Ed never had to fall off a cliff. And then we shot the crash. It's kind of this whole intro is very pieced together. Like we shot the crash at a lot, and then we shot the cliffs on a drone day, and then Ed driving we shot somewhere else because Ed wasn't actually at the cliffs.
Right,
so
right.
It was a bit pieced together, but this one was definitely the most elaborate in that way. Like the cars are somewhere, Ed is somewhere, and the cliffs are somewhere.
Okay, right here, the first video in the series called Boat. We've got Ed Sheeran being smashed up by some ocean waves. Also, the BTS photos tell me that you have a techno crane on this day.
We did have the crane on the beach. So that was sort of like, the reason we did that partially was we did not know really how long he was going to physically be able to stay in this water. We were shooting in the UK in November. So it was cold and the water was cold. And so we made our plan with the, assumption that he would not be able to stay in very long. But he had some amazing wetsuit and was actually totally fine.
Oh, I can see that. Is that what that is under there?
That is what that is. Yeah. So we actually got a lot more out of them than we even expected, just from a human being's ability to be in the water that long. We were able to shoot a lot, but the crane definitely helped speed that up.
Wow. This shot in particular, I mean, the water's moving in slow motion, crashing around him, but he's singing in real time. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite frame of the project, I will say. The way we did that was we had a kind of a phantom crew shooting waves against Ed's body double. Like while we were doing this, they were kind of over there shooting some phantom waves to get the crash against the body to be accurate. And then Ed is actually standing on the shore when we shot this.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so he's not even technically or story-wise he is, but technically in the water. And because I wanted him to be real-time singing, but the wave to be, that sort of phantom. So, and then our amazing team at Mathematic made it one.
When you're conceptualizing something that epic, that involved, are you ever wondering, like, are you ever almost not pitching something because you think it's going to be too much for the budget, or do you pitch it anyway and then go figure out how you're going to do it?
When I first started directing, I would hold back in that way. Like, I'm like, oh, it's probably not possible. I don't want to ask, but now I ask. Because, I mean, again, like sometimes when people are inspired, like I've found that like if I'm able to inspire the team, magic happens. So things come to life. So yeah, I try, I always try, and then I'll pare down from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Same here. Because when you're starting out young, it's like you're so budgetary minded. I mean, we are all always budgetary minded, but I would always default to like, there's no way. I'm just going to find a simpler way to do it. But it's cool that you were able to break out of that.
Yeah, I think I'm happy. Yeah, it's because we find a way usually.
Yeah. All right. Here, Ed is standing on a rock in the ocean. Ed's not afraid to face little danger, is he?
He had to kind of do a lot on this shoot. I don't recall if he enjoys heights or not, but I'm sure it was not the most pleasant. But he was his legs were chained down, I think.
Really? That's awesome.
But yeah, he had to do a lot.
All right, now for my favorite part of the series, we've got Ed Sheeran being stalked by this adorable, fluffy guy.
Yeah, so my first thing was like, he has to be practical. Like, he must be practical. I felt like if he was not, like if he was CG, that it would just take away all of the humanity out of this. And this one is just so like close to my heart, and I think Ed's too. And this was the main, or the video that he really, like, he was like, I want a blue monster to follow me around. And that's what he gave me. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is just great. Like, can't fuck this up. And the design of the monster, I worked with a creature designer named Mr. Gammon. And I kind of knew what I wanted the eyes to look like. I knew, like, I had the pieces. I think I sent him kind of like the eyes from one thing, the fur from another thing, like the shape from another thing. And he mashed it all together. So there is somebody in there. The only really CG we did was we made it blink a few times, and then it gets bigger throughout the course of the video. Which is very subtle, but to do that, we just shot plates, and then we shot the monster on green a few times so that they could enlarge it ever so slightly as the video goes. But I just really wanted it to never be fully fake. And I think it adds a lot because of that.
Super nerdy question. In this shot here, I can see the creature breathing. Is that CG or practical?
Oh, we did add that too. Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of an after the fact thing. Once we had sort of started cutting it together, we felt like it was a little too dead and it needed like a little bit of surreality.
Who was inside of it? Did they suffer from heat stroke?
His name is Jack. He was just on our production team. We didn't hire anyone to do it. So he got to do 2 jobs every that shoot. It was extremely hot in there too, so he was a trooper.
Wow, love this one. Again, Ed with the chain.
He's got something on his back holding him up there that we had to paint out. This was another kind of like, this shoot was, the locations are so epic, but each one of them came with I learned so much on this job. Like this boat yard, like we were fighting the tides pretty intensely. Like all of this stuff that you see him on, like after a certain time in the day, was totally submerged in water. And it was just like, I felt like a scientist or a meteorologist for like looking at the tides and the weather. And it was very involved, but I was like, we must shoot here.
Yeah.
That's something I fought for.
When you guys are going through, I mean, what was it like to work with Ed? I know as a director, sometimes the total vision is up to me. And sometimes it's actually like a collaboration, like the entire concept for a music video is someone else's and I'm but of us bringing service to that. What was it like working with Ed, and how many of these ideas came from you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got a brief that was like kind of a tonal brief, like about how they were hoping to do something really raw and sort of a bit more mature and kind of showing a new side. So they did that, gift me with the sort of direction they wanted to take this in, like that it was kind of paring back the glitz and the pop glam kind of stuff and getting really real. So I got that to work off of, and then Ed came to me with the blue monster idea. Like that was something that he had kind of been sitting on for a while. It was very personal to him. Even the shade of blue or the color blue was something that was specific to the person that he had lost. So all of that was like extremely, and that was kind of like our hero video. But the rest of it, I was kind of given free rein to go for it. And I think the great thing about him is like he always gave me his opinion, which I loved, but he gave me so much freedom, like an amazing amount of freedom to go forth and do this. And there was a lot of confidence in me, which is a really great feeling as a director that, you know, they're down to jump into the fire or the ocean with you.
I love that. All right, for those just listening, we've got Ed sitting on a stool with a white backdrop on the beach. And we've got tons of paint in slow motion being thrown right at his face.
I think also, you know what? This one was Ed's idea, the splatter paint moment. He had told me he was really eager he had always wanted to do one of these.
Yeah.
And it worked because the song kind of lended itself to the colors. But yeah, I felt bad. The paint was cold and this wasn't a fun one for him to shoot, but
yeah, I'm sure everything's cold in that part of the world at this time of year. What was propelling the paint?
That's a good question. I kind of forget. I think it was just people in buckets.
Cool.
But I don't remember. I'll have to go look at the BTS.
Yeah, this one's just all eye candy visually. Mm-hmm. It's just fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was freezing.
Okay, you guys really changed it up here at this one. Went black and white, 4x3.
Yeah.
Really static. Yeah, tell me about this piece.
I just really wanted this one to feel like really, really beautiful black and white portraits, like that each frame you could hang on your wall. I actually have one on my wall. Like I wanted them to, you know, feel like photographs and just be really graphic in that way. And it felt like the black and white, you know, we hadn't done any black and white, but also the tone felt so right with the rest, even though it's slightly different, like it still feels very cohesive to me. And then the 4:3 was, again, just lending itself to that more photographic lens that I was coming at it with. So we shot like kind of an Ed plate and then a pedestrian plate for each one.
Wow, visually maybe my favorite piece here. We've got Ed in an origami boat on the beach surrounded by a bunch of junk. Is the junk real?
We brought all the junk.
Nice.
But it was crazy because the tides were changing the landscape of everything so much that like this location that we had scouted was actually full of these really cool rocks and stuff. And then we went to go shoot it and they were all gone. Just under the sand.
Dude, I'm telling you, some sky texture will do everything for a scene or for a shot, right?
Yeah, I was just squealing, I think. And then we were throwing bread, and we got all these birds to come, and I was also like, yes, the birds.
That was my next question, is that background movement is so engaging. Yeah, how did you get the birds around? But you used bread.
Yeah. Yeah, these frames in this one are some of my favorites. I just like the color of his sweater and then the green and like that orange hair and this blue. I just really, really love the grade on these, particularly in how this one came out.
Stunning, stunning, stunning. Here we've got spirals in the sand that Ed's just kind of walking around.
Yeah, and big shout out to our crew that dug all of these in the sand. They were actually circles at first, but we decided creatively in post to make them spirals. So there was actually a lot of post done on this one, which is funny because like you wouldn't really realize that, I don't think. But they were circles at first, and we were feeling like it just needed to be more dynamic and kind of interesting. So they tweaked them to be spirals.
That's cool. Gotta love post options there.
But there were practical holes that were dug, and shout out to those people because it was
They
not,
laid the foundation with their
they were
sweat.
out there in the cold with their boots on, digging.
Gosh. Wow. All right, I gotta know how you guys did this one. We've got Ed sitting on a branch with water pouring out of his chest.
The idea here was kind of like, a pouring your heart out moment, you know what I mean? And just kind of keeping it super simple and living in that sort of moment of him sort of expunging all these feelings while he's, literally pouring water out of his chest. And so, yeah, we had that contraption I mentioned with the kind of hoses and the valves that was controlled to spew water. So it's kind of hidden by, I don't think we even had to paint anything out. Like you just couldn't even see it. But yeah, the first test was a failure and we got water all over him and we had to change the methodology a little bit, but it worked in the end.
All right, this looks sketchy. Right now, we've got, for those who are just listening, we've got Ed Sheeran hanging on a ladder in the sky.
Yes, so this was all practical. We had this ladder hanging from a crane, and we kind of pre-broke some of these wooden planks. And I think maybe we painted out some of the cracks just to hide it, but we broke them, so that all he would have to do was kind of like barely, break through. He got pretty high. We were on the beach, which you see at the end of this one. But yeah, I was obviously trying to mask the beach for the most part, but I wasn't expecting him to go as high as he did. But he just kept climbing.
He's a brave soul, isn't he?
He was very brave, yeah.
Okay, and here we've got Ed on his back, sinking into the earth and into darkness.
This song makes me cry. So this one, I thought it was a lovely kind of way to end the whole thing, and this sort of,
wow,
like a, personal, of sinking back into reality, I guess. He's kind of coming, I guess, back to life in a way of rebirth sort of idea here. This was practical, really, really awesome contraption that our production editor Sarah made here. She kind of built this, like, it was like steel decking. It was pretty high, and then it had the lowering and raising mechanism that was kind of Ed sized, and then she made the grass, so that's all raised above the ground, like probably 4 or 5 feet or so, and then it just went up and down and up and down. He said this was actually the worst one.
That's
the water, the paint, nothing was as bad as this one, I guess. I can imagine. Yeah.
You guys so could have faked that, but you didn't, and it looks so cool.
Yeah, I really love this. This one is very special. So we wanted to shoot it in the actual location that he's singing about, but that's in Scotland. So,
yeah. Man, it looks like he was wet, cold, and dirty the whole shoot.
He was. It's kind of poetic, It kind of lends itself to the story of the videos themselves.
Is there anything else you want to break down about this shoot? Any other setups? Anything remarkable you want to talk about?
I think the main thing is, I have to say this, but just like the crew was so amazing. Like everyone worked so hard. It was rarely have I gotten to spend that much time with a crew, and it's kind of like summer camp, like you will just get really close. So I loved working on that, and I learned so much. It was like such an amazing learning experience, and I loved the town we shot in and the people we worked with. So Unicorn Project is what we called it,
Yeah.
Our producer Ro coined that term, kind of just like a once in a lifetime thing we got to do. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, Mia, thanks for sharing. Beautiful piece.
Absolutely.
As someone who nerds out on that kind of stuff, I could ask you questions all night and day about how some of that stuff was done, because I'm a big fan of the practical application to effects.
Yeah.
My argument is that if it is real, it'll look real. So
Yeah.
I'll even like scale back conceptually what I want to do for the sake of doing it for real.
Yeah.
And maybe it's my lack of experience with VFX. It's probably that. But
Well,
I appreciate practical effects when I see it.
Yeah, me too. I think like, I feel like I've had my fair share of experience with both, and I just, sometimes you can't do it practically, but I just, especially for a project like this that was already so, the point was to be, kind of, what's the word? Pared back, that I felt like overdoing it, the VFX would sort of just take away from everything else.
Yeah. Was there a big lesson that you learned on that project?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I learned 10,000 lessons on that project. It was definitely at the time, probably my biggest thing, that I had done. So I think it's kind of, I feel like where I really learned so much of what I spoke about earlier about just like my role and how to do a good job at my role and what do I want in a crew and what kind of prep do I want to do? It was really like such a, I think that I did it justice, but at the same time, I feel like it taught me like 10 years worth of things about filmmaking and just the actual, the logistics of that shoot were so complicated with the ocean and the tides and the publicness of it all. We were shooting public places and that got a little crazy here and there. So yeah, I think that it taught me everything.
Yeah, I mean, you essentially shot a feature. I've worked as crew on features that were shot in less time than this.
Yeah, it was like invaluable amount of experience in such a short time.
Yeah. Did you edit all these?
Personally?
Yeah.
No.
Good for you. Good for you. Do you edit any of your work?
I don't. I think that I could see myself doing it at some point. Like I know how, but I'm not, savvy enough to do it right now. I don't think, but I, when I was a kid and stuff, I edited all my stuff, so there's a love for it. But
yeah,
I just, I work with people that I trust pretty consistently now. I use a lot of the same editors over and over and over again, so it kind of, it becomes so much a shorthand that I don't feel like I need to.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so fascinating to me because most people I talk to, most directors, they love that opportunity to edit their own work. So to talk to someone who like fully hands that off is so cool.
I think the reason I usually can hand it off is because of the boards and the board-o-matic. Like I've already kind of know for the most part what I want it to be. And again, we play. We always play, we always change things, but rarely am I going into an edit trying to find it. You know what I mean? Like it's like a good example of this actually is Bam Bam and by Camila and then Feather, the Sabrina Carpenter video. Like those were really by the lyric. So like I always will shoot full passes of the song in every setup so that if for some reason I need to cover myself, I have something to put there. But, like Feather particularly, like, there was a story happening, so I couldn't jump around randomly. I had to get the lyric on the line. And the edit is less complicated in that way that, the board-o-matic's already been done, which helps.
Wow, yeah, so you've edited before you even shot it.
In a way. Wow. But I think, I like to sometimes let things... Like I think a lot of Subtract actually there was a bit more of that finding it in the edit because like a lot of those visualizers were fairly simple and he did cover the whole song in so many different angles that I could play a lot more, but that was just kind of the nature of that job and it's not how my jobs usually are.
Sorry, hey, there's wild beasts at my door.
Oh my god. What were they?
My neighbor's dogs. They love to pay me a visit, and they're scratching at the door.
Since you said you lived in the mountains, I thought maybe it was something worse.
It has been something worse. It's tarantula season. They're like the size of birds around here, so they like to scratch at the door too.
Oh man.
So I want to ask some big questions. The highs and the lows. Like, let's start with the highs. What part of the process do you enjoy the most?
That's a really good question. I think like it's usually it's like I remember on my first music video, the Camila video, we have this shot of her like she's leaning out the car window and it starts raining and she's like singing in the rain out the car window, and we only had one chance to do that because we're driving around downtown LA. We have to time the song, time the sprinkler, and obviously she was gonna get wet and it was the end of the night, so like it was like now or never. And I just remember we like got it and it was perfect, and my DP David and I were just like, oh my god, yeah, we did it. And I was just like, it was like, I even wrote this down like in a journal later. I was like, it's just like moments like that, just like, it's so just satisfying and lovely when your vision is realized. And I think like all the different ways that happens, whether it's like getting the winning shot like that, or I remember like it's another good example. There are moments, I can't pinpoint them all, but there are moments that happen on set where I'm just like, I literally have the feeling where it's like, wow, I could never do anything else. Like, you know, like the choreography is hit so hard. Like that shot was just so great. I think it's when you're getting those winning shots is probably the highlight for me. Like when we were shooting Ed on the beach with the waves and the Phantom, and it looked so epic. And me and Ro, my producer, was like, oh my God, like, yeah, you know, it's just the best. And I think like, you know, that's what you want every time. Obviously it doesn't happen all the time, but it's so fulfilling. And then I think the other part would just be like getting to see the outcome and how the world reacts to the outcome. You know, granted that it's good. I loved on the Subtract project because it was such an emotional project. Like I got so many kind of notes from people about how the work had affected them and their grief, and how like Eyes Closed kind of was it was poignant for a lot of people who had lost someone. And like, that's always something you hope, you know, that people are actually touched by it. And that happened, and I got a bunch of fan art, you know, of like people drawing the monster and people dressing up as the monster.
That's cool. You're getting like, fan art. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And even like the little girl who was in the Dusty video and played his daughter, like her mom had sent me like videos of her watching the premiere with all her friends, and it was just like, this is why I love what I do. You know what I mean? Like that part where you get to bridge the gap between what's in your head and reality, and then how that can, even when it's not heartfelt stuff, you know, like a lot of people there was a really good reaction to the Feather video, and like that was not so much emotional, but it was kind of like sassy and funny, and like there was an edge there, and like there was some virality to that moment, and I think that's always really exciting.
All right, what part of the process does Mia dread?
Ooh, that's a good question. It used to be the verbal pitch used to be something that I just literally dreaded doing. But it's a skill in its own, you know, like you can be creative, you can be a director, you can be a great writer, but like the verbal pitch is kind of its own skill and own thing to perfect. You know, I'm on Zooms, you know, all the time. Like it's vulnerable, you know, like you've written this, now you have to go and try to prove to other people why it's worth doing. And sometimes you get an amazing reaction, sometimes you don't. And I think that the longer I do this, the less things bother me, you know, because usually I feel pretty confident that I like what I'm putting forward. So if somebody else doesn't like it, it's kind of like, okay, you know, we differ. But at the beginning, it was just like, I would be giving myself like pep talks in the mirror before a commercial pitch. And now I'm like, look, here we go. We got this. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow. You're right. That is a skill of its own. Do you always pitch verbally over Zoom on big projects?
Pretty much for commercials, always. Every job I'm doing a verbal pitch of the writing, and then music videos, it depends. Usually I talk to at least the team verbally, you know, or on the phone. Sometimes I usually that's after the artist has kind of seen it and likes it and stuff, and then I talk to them before the shoot. But it's definitely more in the commercial space.
Yeah.
Usually with music videos, you just don't hear back.
Yeah. Lessons, we all learn those in the process and along the way. Is there a big important lesson that stands out to you that you learned?
Yeah, I think this kind of maybe goes back to a lot of the stuff I've been saying, but the overall thing that I've learned and that I'm really trying really hard to stand by right now is just putting, how do I say this? Prioritizing my vision above all else, and really, really like spending time only on stuff that fuels me as an artist. Because, you know, I've learned through experience just that, like, if your heart's, like, it's a hard job, you know, it's a lot of hours and stuff. And if your heart's in it, I can work nonstop, you know what I mean? But if it's not, then it becomes really draining. And as an artist, it's like, I have to feel that, you know what I mean? Or else it's like, I just start to kind of power off. So I think what I've been really trying to do, and what I've learned through this time so far, is just prioritizing my vision, pushing for my vision, honing the vision, you know what I mean? And really just spending all my time like crafting my personal artistic identity so that I can really only do work that I'm passionate about, which is such a privilege. You know, I'm not there yet, but that would be the goal.
Wow. Yeah, that really speaks to me, because we've all done work we don't want to do, and it certainly is different than the work we really want to do. If I'm doing something I really want to do, I can go days and days and days.
Like
my stamina is amazing. Nothing else matters. Time disappears. Flow state happens. Such a difference, right? So what I hear you saying is that you've kind of like prioritized those projects that are going to make you work and feel like that over things that you don't.
Definitely. And I think it also, like, it even means though that I'm doing a lot of personal work right now that, like, I think that my identity as an artist, like, I am very sure of it, but I don't know that I've necessarily communicated my interpretation of that to the world yet. I think I have, because by default of my work is me, you know, so it's going to have me in it, of course. But I think that there's some stuff that I'm chewing on that I'm excited to, you know, finish, but that will kind of, I said this earlier, but it's just like you're getting rid of everything that's not really, really you as an artist. Because when you're working with brands and artists, you're always, you know, making some sort of concessions to further their brand or their era. So I think it's just like, I would love to really just have more control over that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, on that, what's next for Mia? What's something you want to do that you haven't done yet?
I still feel like I'm kind of just at the tip of the iceberg of everything. Like even with music videos, you know, like the Ed Sheeran Subtract was so amazing, but I feel like it's kind of just the beginning. I still feel like I have so much more I want to do in music videos before I move on. But I also, you know, I recently started writing a film, which hadn't done that before. You know, I don't have scripts laying around, and that was always kind of just chewing on something, and I finally started writing it. So that's in the hemisphere. But I think yeah, just prioritizing stuff that I know I can really bring myself to.
So we talked about adapting, right? How important it is. How do you adapt to this ever-changing industry that is the film industry?
Yeah, I know it feels like a funny time to like be doing this, just with, you know, AI and everything is just kind of like, everything's a little unsure of, you know, where will we be in 5 or 10 years. But yeah. I think the best thing to do is I try to stay up on just like the new technologies and the new stuff that's coming out, because whether I end up using it or not, I just want to, you know, what is it people say, like, adapt or die. Like, I don't want to, you know, get stuck in my, I think I could get stuck in my sort of habits and the stuff that I'm used to, or just kind of be willing to change, or not change, but, you know, like, things are going to keep changing. There's going to be new stuff, new technology, all that jazz. So I'm trying to go with the flow as much as I can, because, you know, I want to be kind of involved with stuff that is of the times.
Yeah, I'm always pushing myself for that too. My God, would it be so easy for me to sit back and just be frustrated about the way things are going? And there's a little of that, but also it's a very beautiful age right now of that. I mean, I will use AI to make your voice sound incredible for this podcast, and mine too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, it's the other end of the spectrum that I think some people are afraid of. You know?
Yeah, and rightfully so. You know, it's a really weird time, and I think I'm just trying to use what I can that are tools, and then I really not get too caught up in it at the same time though, because like it's crazy from the time that I started writing treatments to now, like the resources are like what? Yeah. We didn't have frames that, so like we didn't have Midjourney back then. So well, things have been made easier. I think just like I'm trying not to rely on things too much, because like we're gonna forget how to write if we just use ChatGPT to write everything for us.
100%. 100%.
And that's why I'm trying to, keep reading books.
Mia, last question. What haven't I asked you? The ball is in your court here.
Oh, wow. Oh, what haven't you asked me?
Or what's on your heart? What would you like to tell the people, the young filmmakers who are wanting to make the amazing work that you've gotten to make so far?
That's a good question. Sorry, I'm like, can't think. I feel like you really have gone to everything. I feel like what I would say is like the process of defining yourself as an artist is sort of lifelong. But I really feel like you've caught me at an interesting time, because I'm doing a bunch of personal work and like self-actualizing and all this stuff right now. A lot of recent changes in my life. So I think I'm really kind of my where my mind is very much just like trying to find ways to really identify me as an artist and push that into the world. And that's what I would tell people who want to be successful is like, if you have an undisputable thing, like and that's good, the work will come. And I think just to keep chipping away at what you want to do, and reference, but make it your own.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. I feel like there's so many now that we have all these amazing like visual research websites and stuff. It's like I do feel like there's a more than ever need to like be more inventive, even because of everything is so universally accessible, like camera move references and like it's just all out there, which is really great as someone who's trying to learn. But I think that it's almost a challenge for me at the same time. It's like what I used to have to dig for now is at the top of my page. So I think, how can I stand out, I think is something that's top of mind, because I am so inspired by so many people in the sphere of what we do. But I think it's really important to find what you can do that nobody else can.
Yeah. So what I hear is that in this age of references, in this age of sharing of content, and access to ideas, it's ever more important to sink in and find our own voice and originality.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's so important. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the way when I first started, like how hard it was to find, and like stuff that now is so easy to find is like, it's both good and a bad thing.
Well, Mia, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast.
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten to dive that deep on the whole Subtract project either. So that was really lovely to kind of revisit that 2 years later. So thank you.
Cool.
Great. Wow.
Great.
That was great.
Great job. I think we nailed it. This has been a production of FrameSet. We're trying something new here and plan to make a whole lot more of these. So light up the comment section with feedback. Thank you.